AITA for refusing to host Thanksgiving after my sister handed out a family code of conduct contract. Thanksgiving has always been my favorite holiday. For as long as I can remember, it's been a day of warmth, good food, and the kind of familial chaos that's somehow both maddening and comforting. When I bought my house 5 years ago, I made it my mission to host every Thanksgiving. I love everything about it: the early morning bustle of cooking, the smell of turkey roasting in the oven, the inevitable dance of too many people in the kitchen, and even the minor disasters, like forgetting to defrost the rolls or accidentally doubling the sugar in the sweet potatoes. The tradition has grown over the years. My parents, siblings, cousins, and their families all gather under my roof, and it's become something of a highlight in our family calendar. It's chaotic, yes, but it's my kind of chaos. There's always a lot of talking, people talking over each other, kids squealing as they chase each other through the house, someone inevitably laughing too loud in the kitchen. It's not perfect, but it feels like home. This year, though, things took a turn I never saw coming. My younger sister, Emily, who's 29, has always been a bit of a perfectionist. From as far back as I can remember, Emily has had a knack for structure and control that could put a military commander to shame. Growing up, she was the kid who'd rewrite her school notes 3 times to get them just right and organize her closet by color, season, and type of fabric. Family vacations with her were something else entirely. She didn't just pack her suitcase, she made checklists for everyone else's. And when we hit the road, she'd hand out laminated itineraries complete with estimated travel times, scheduled rest stops, and suggested activities ranked by priority. I remember once laughing when she made us all vote on which beach umbrella to rent because she had ranked them based on proximity to the snack bar and potential for afternoon shade. It was just Emily being Emily, over the top, a little exhausting, but undeniably efficient. As we've gotten older, her need for control has stayed the same, but I've learned to take it in stride. It's her nature, and most of the time, it's harmless. Sure, there were the occasional moments when she'd push her helpfulness a little too far, like the time she insisted on reorganizing my spice cabinet during a dinner party or made me redo my wedding seating chart 3 times because she didn't think the flow worked. But for the most part, I just let it roll off my back. That's Emily. You love her for it, or in some cases, in spite of it. But this time, she took it to a level I didn't think was possible. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, Emily called me out of the blue. Her tone was warm and casual, almost suspiciously so. "Hey," she started, with the kind of false nonchalance that immediately makes you feel like something's up. "I know hosting Thanksgiving is a ton of work for you. I was thinking maybe I could help bring a little more order to the day this year." I blinked, caught off guard. I mean, hosting Thanksgiving is a lot of work, but I've been doing it for 5 years now, and while it's chaotic, I've never felt like it needed order. Still, Emily offering to help. That was new. I'll admit, for a moment, I was relieved. Thanksgiving with 20 people under one roof is no small feat, and even though I love doing it, any extra set of hands is always welcome. My mind immediately jumped to practical things she could take off my plate. Maybe she wanted to coordinate who would bring which dishes, or maybe she was volunteering to help with cleanup. Those are the kinds of things I'd appreciate. "That sounds great," I told her, grateful for the offer. "I'm all for anything that makes the day run smoother." "Oh, perfect," she said, her voice practically crackling with excitement. "I've already started putting some ideas together." That should have been my first red flag, but I didn't think much of it at the time. Emily loves to plan, it's her thing. I figured she'd send out a group text or maybe a Google Doc to help organize the food. Little did I know what she had in store. A week before Thanksgiving, Emily showed up at my house unannounced. She had a stack of papers in her hands and an almost unnerving look of satisfaction on her face. "I've got something that's going to make this the best Thanksgiving ever," she said as she handed me the papers. The title of the document alone made me pause: Family Code of Conduct for Thanksgiving 2024. At first, I thought it was a joke. I actually laughed and said, "Oh, this is funny. Did you make this for kicks?" But Emily's face was very serious. "It's not a joke," she said. I've put a lot of thought into this. Every year, Thanksgiving feels so chaotic, and I just want to make it more enjoyable for everyone. I started flipping through the pages, and I couldn't believe what I was reading. This wasn't just a list of helpful suggestions, it was a full-blown manifesto. The pages were meticulously formatted, with sections, subheadings, and bullet points that outlined, in excruciating detail, her vision for a more harmonious Thanksgiving. The tone of the document was serious, almost corporate, like something you'd expect to receive at a mandatory workplace seminar rather than a family holiday. The words Code of Conduct were bolded and underlined at the top of the first page, as though this wasn't just a holiday gathering but a legally binding agreement. The opening paragraph set the tone. It read, "Every year, Thanksgiving has the potential to be a joyous and fulfilling day, but disorganization and unchecked chaos often undermine the experience. This code of conduct is designed to ensure that all family members can enjoy a peaceful, productive, and respectful holiday." I nearly dropped the papers right then and there. Peaceful, productive, and respectful. It sounded less like a holiday and more like a corporate retreat. As I continued reading, it became clear that Emily hadn't left anything to chance. The manifesto was divided into neatly labeled sections, each dedicated to a specific aspect of the day. There were bolded subheadings, numbered lists, and even italicized notes for emphasis. It was the kind of thing you'd expect from a control freak with too much time on her hands, and Emily fit the bill perfectly. Some of the highlights included a ban on overlapping conversations at the dinner table. Emily explained, in a section titled Conversation Etiquette for Group Harmony, that the noise level during past Thanksgivings had been counterproductive to meaningful dialogue. Her solution? A rule against overlapping conversations. Instead, she proposed that we take turns speaking, like in a respectful debate club. To make sure this system worked, she suggested introducing a signal raising a hand, no less when someone wanted to speak. The thought of a room full of adults sitting in silence, hands raised like elementary school students waiting to be called on, was almost too much for me to process. I could barely suppress my laughter. A prohibition on political or controversial topics. According to Emily, these topics were conversation killers that created unnecessary tension and detracted from the holiday's purpose. There was an entire subheading dedicated to this rule, titled Fostering Inclusive and Neutral Conversations. To enforce it, she appointed herself as the final arbiter of what constituted a heated discussion. If a conversation started veering into territory she deemed too divisive, she reserved the right to intervene and shut it down. There was even a bullet point that read, "Should tensions arise, all parties will pause for a moment of reflection before resuming the discussion in a calmer tone." A dress code of smart casual. Emily argued that holiday photos were family heirlooms in the making and that people should put some effort into looking polished. There was a paragraph emphasizing the importance of aesthetic cohesion in family photos, complete with a note that said, "Sweatpants, athletic wear, and graphic t-shirts are not appropriate attire for a family gathering of this significance." She described the dress code as smart casual but left room for interpretation, adding that earth tones and classic patterns were preferable to anything too trendy or bold. Assigned seating. Under the heading Optimizing Seating Arrangements for Maximum Compatibility, Emily detailed how she had meticulously planned a seating chart to minimize conflicts and maximize interpersonal connections. She claimed to have considered everyone's personalities, strategically placing individuals next to those with whom they were most likely to enjoy meaningful conversations. Naturally, she positioned herself at the head of the table, ensuring she could guide the flow of discussion and oversee the overall atmosphere of the meal. A strict schedule. Perhaps the most baffling part of the document was the detailed timetable Emily had created for the day. It broke Thanksgiving into 15-minute increments, starting from the moment guests arrived and ending with a designated departure window. There were scheduled conversation breaks to prevent what she called verbal fatigue, a concept I didn't even know existed. There was a bullet point about allocating exactly 30 minutes for dessert and a reminder that any deviations from the schedule would require prior approval to ensure the day's flow remains intact. The deeper I got into the document, the more absurd it became. Emily had thought of everything, or, more accurately, overthought everything. There were even footnotes explaining the reasoning behind some of the rules. as though she expected pushback and wanted to preemptively defend herself. For example, under the dress code section, there was a note that read, "Studies show that dressing appropriately for events can boost confidence and foster a sense of unity among attendees." Under the assigned seating section, she cited research on social dynamics as justification for her carefully curated chart. I couldn't believe what I was reading. This wasn't just a list of ideas to make the day easier. This was a full-blown takeover of Thanksgiving, complete with policies, procedures, and even a vague threat of enforcement. It was so over the top that for a moment, I wondered if she was pranking me. But no, this was classic Emily, overly structured, uncomfortably rigid, and completely tone-deaf to the fact that no one else in the family would ever agree to this. By the time I finished skimming the document, my head was spinning. This wasn't Thanksgiving. This was a dystopian family experiment disguised as a holiday. I was stunned. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or call someone for backup. "Emily," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "this is a lot. Don't you think it'll make things better?" She asked, completely earnest. "Every year, it's so chaotic. This will help everyone enjoy the day more." I tried to reason with her. "Thanksgiving is supposed to be chaotic," I said. "That's part of the charm. It's messy and loud and a little imperfect, but that's what makes it feel real. I don't think anyone wants to follow a code of conduct." She didn't take that well. "You're not taking this seriously," she said, crossing her arms. "I'm just trying to help, and you're being dismissive, because it's ridiculous," I said. "If you want Thanksgiving to be that structured, maybe you should host it yourself." I didn't expect her to take me up on that, but she did. Within hours, she sent out a mass email to the entire family, announcing that she would be hosting Thanksgiving this year instead. She attached the family code of conduct and insisted that everyone read and sign it before attending. She even included a line that said, "Failure to adhere to the code of conduct will result in immediate removal from the premises." The family response was mixed, to say the least. My mom called me and said I should have just gone along with it to keep the peace. My brother, Mike, who has zero tolerance for Emily's antics, declared that he wasn't going anywhere that required a holiday constitution. My dad, ever the diplomat, tried to mediate, but even he couldn't convince Emily to back down. Now, the family is completely divided. Some people are siding with Emily, saying I overreacted and should have let her implement her improvements. Others think Emily has gone off the deep end and are refusing to attend her hyper-regulated Thanksgiving. And me? I'm stuck in the middle, feeling like the bad guy for standing my ground. Should I have just humored her for the day? Should I have let her turn Thanksgiving into a regimented experiment in family dynamics? Or was I right to put my foot down and protect the chaotic, messy, imperfect tradition I hold so dear? One thing's for sure, Thanksgiving will never be the same. Update. After reading the family code of conduct from start to finish and sitting in stunned silence for a solid 10 minutes, I decided I couldn't let this slide. It wasn't just about me. I knew my entire family would lose their minds if they had to deal with Emily's holiday dictatorship. I also knew that this wasn't something I could quietly dismiss or handle one-on-one with her. Emily wasn't going to back down unless she was faced with overwhelming, undeniable proof that her rules were, in fact, ridiculous. If it were just me saying it, she'd write me off as overreacting, but if the entire family spoke up, she'd have no choice but to face reality. That's when I got the idea to bring this up in the family group chat. We've had this group chat for years. It's where we plan birthdays, holidays, and random get-togethers. It's also a place where we've hashed out arguments before, so it felt like the right forum for this. Plus, Emily was in the chat, so there'd be no behind-the-back conversations or accusations of gossiping. Everything would be out in the open. I grabbed my phone, opened the chat, and typed out a message. I decided to keep it direct and to the point, at least to start. I said something like, "Hi everyone, quick question. Does anyone actually agree with Emily's Thanksgiving rules? I just read her code of conduct, and honestly, I'm struggling to understand how this is supposed to make the day better. I'd love to hear everyone's honest opinions." Almost immediately, my phone started buzzing with replies. The first few were cautious, which I expected. Nobody wanted to be the first to outright criticize Emily's plan, especially knowing she was in the chat. My mom was the first to respond, saying something vague about how Emily means well and how we should all try to get along. My cousin Sarah chimed in with a message that was so neutral it was almost comical. I haven't really thought about it. What does everyone else think? It was clear no one wanted to touch this with a 10-foot pole. But I wasn't about to let the conversation fizzle out. I replied quickly, saying, I'm asking because I'm genuinely against these rules. I think they're unnecessary, overcomplicated, and honestly, they take the fun out of Thanksgiving. I'd like everyone to share their honest opinions, even if Emily is in this chat. I think it's important that she sees how we all feel. That's when the floodgates opened. My brother Mike, who has always been the most outspoken member of the family, didn't hold back. He said something along the lines of, I'll go first. This whole code of conduct thing is insane. Thanksgiving isn't a board meeting. We don't need assigned seating or hand-raising at the dinner table. I'm all for keeping the peace, but this is way over the top. Once Mike spoke up, it was like a domino effect. My cousin Rachel, who is usually very diplomatic, said she agreed completely. Thanksgiving is supposed to be relaxed and fun, she wrote. These rules sound stressful and unnecessary. I'd rather have the usual chaos than sit through some overly structured version of the holiday. Even my dad, who rarely gets involved in family disputes, weighed in. He said, I think Emily is trying to help, but this feels like too much. I don't think we need rules to enjoy Thanksgiving. One by one, the messages started rolling in. People were polite, but the sentiment was clear. Nobody supported Emily's rules. My aunt chimed in, saying she didn't see the point of a dress code and thought the assigned seating idea was awkward and forced. My cousin Jake said he couldn't believe we were even having this conversation and that he was firmly on Team Chaos. Even my mom, who had initially been neutral, eventually admitted that she didn't think the rules were necessary but was trying to avoid conflict. The more messages came in, the more validated I felt. For the first time since Emily dropped this bombshell on me, I didn't feel alone. It wasn't just me who thought her plan was absurd, it was everyone. And then Emily joined the chat. Her first message came in hot. She said something like, wow, I see everyone's true colors now. I can't believe how dismissive you're all being. I put a lot of thought into this because I wanted to make Thanksgiving better for everyone, and this is the response I get. Unbelievable. Her message was dripping with indignation, and I could practically hear the anger in her tone. She followed up quickly, saying, you all clearly don't understand the value of structure. These rules aren't just for me, they're for all of us. They're meant to reduce stress and make the day more enjoyable. If you'd just give them a chance, you'd see that I'm right. The chat exploded after that, and it was as if everyone had been waiting for someone to give them permission to really speak their mind. My brother Mike, always the first to call things out for what they are, wasted no time. His message was sharp and to the point, saying something like, Emily, no offense, but it's pretty clear that the only person who wants these rules is you. Everyone else here is saying the same thing. We don't need them. Thanksgiving is fine the way it is. He didn't sugarcoat anything, which was classic Mike, and I could almost picture him sitting at his kitchen table, shaking his head in disbelief while typing. That seemed to open the floodgates. The responses started coming in rapid succession, each one more pointed than the last. My cousin Rachel, who normally tries to keep things calm and diplomatic, surprised me by being surprisingly direct. I agree with Mike 100%. These rules feel like they're adding more stress, not less, she wrote. Thanksgiving has always been chaotic, sure, but it's a good kind of chaos. It's the kind that makes it feel alive and fun. Trying to force structure on it like this just makes it feel cold and weird. Then my aunt, who rarely gets involved in family drama, chimed in with a pointed critique of her own. I've hosted plenty of Thanksgivings over the years, and let me tell you, no one wants to feel like they're attending a formal dinner party with seating charts and rules about what they can talk about. It's Thanksgiving, not a wedding reception. The whole point is to relax and enjoy each other's company. Even my dad, who almost never takes sides in family disagreements, stepped in with his own take. His message was measured but firm, exactly what you'd expect from someone who prides himself on being the voice of reason. Emily, I know you're trying to help, and I can appreciate the effort, but Thanksgiving doesn't need to be fixed. It's one day out of the year where we all come together and just enjoy being a family. The last thing it needs is rules and regulations. You could practically feel the collective energy in the chat shift. Each new message seemed to amplify the sentiment that Emily's plans were not only unnecessary but actively detrimental to the spirit of the holiday. For the first time, I started to feel like I wasn't alone in thinking her code of conduct was completely over the top. It was clear that everyone else was on the same page, or at least close enough, but Emily, predictably, was not ready to back down. She came back into the conversation with what I could only describe as a mix of frustration and condescension. "You all just don't get it," she wrote. "These rules aren't about taking the fun out of Thanksgiving, they're about making it better for everyone. You're all so used to the chaos that you don't even realize how much better things could be with a little bit of structure. I'm doing this for the benefit of the family, whether you realize it or not." Her insistence that she was doing this for the benefit of the family was met with immediate pushback. People started replying almost simultaneously, their messages popping up faster than I could read them. My brother Mike was the first to respond, saying, "Emily, I think the problem here is that you're the only one who thinks these rules would make Thanksgiving better. Everyone else is perfectly happy with how it's been for years. Just because you think it's chaotic doesn't mean the rest of us do." Rachel followed up quickly, saying, "Exactly. The chaos is what makes it feel like a real family holiday. Trying to strip that away with rules and timetables doesn't make it better, it just makes it feel artificial." Even my usually quiet cousin Jake, who rarely contributes much to the group chat, couldn't resist chiming in. "Emily, no offense, but the only person these rules seem to be benefiting is you. Nobody else wants to raise their hand to speak or stick to some dress code. It's Thanksgiving. We just want to eat and have a good time." Emily, however, was determined to dig her heels in. She replied with a lengthy message about how everyone was being short-sighted and how they didn't understand the value of structure. She wrote something about how chaos may feel normal, but it's not the best way to create meaningful family moments, and how her rules were designed to bring out the best in everyone. At that point, the chat began to take on a more sarcastic tone. Someone, probably Mike, sent a string of laughing emojis in response to Emily's message, followed by, "Emily, you're talking about Thanksgiving like it's a corporate seminar. Nobody is showing up to elevate anything. We're showing up to eat, laugh, and probably argue about who forgot the cranberry sauce. That's the point." Others started piling on, echoing Mike's sentiment but with a mix of humor and exasperation. Rachel wrote, "Honestly, if Thanksgiving turns into a formal event with a dress code and assigned seating, I'm going to miss the chaos of Uncle Bob spilling gravy all over the table. That's what makes it memorable." Someone else joked, "Can't wait to see who gets assigned to the optimal personality compatibility section of the table. Do we get a certificate of approval at the end?" Someone else joked about showing up in pajamas just to spite the dress code. Even my usually quiet cousin chimed in, saying, "Can't wait for Emily to whip out the PowerPoint presentation during dessert." Emily's frustration was palpable, even through the screen. She kept trying to defend her rules, insisting that the family didn't know what was good for them and that her plan was a gift they weren't appreciating. But by this point, the mood in the chat had shifted entirely. People were no longer just disagreeing with her, they were laughing at the absurdity of the whole situation. The harder Emily pushed, the more it became clear that no one else was on her side. Emily tried to keep arguing, but it was clear the tide had turned. No one was on her side. The more she pushed, the more people pushed back, and by the end of it, she was clearly furious. Her last message was something like, "Fine, do whatever you want. Don't come crying to me when Thanksgiving turns into a disaster." Later, we agreed with my family to celebrate as usual. We also invited my sister. She said she would think about it.